What is the most bullet reason for a teacher to give you a bad grade? Not a bad grade, but I remember I was so close to being the first person to ever score a 100% on my 10th grade Spanish final. The one question I got wrong was, ¿Qué tipo comida es el pescado? What type of food is fish? A. El carne, meat. B. La fruta, fruit. C. El pan, bread. D. La verdura, vegetable. I of course picked meat, and got it wrong because my teacher insisted that fish isn't meat. She's a Catholic and eats fish on Fridays during Lent. According to her, the correct answer is fruit, because fish are sometimes known as the fruit of the sea. What the actual frick? Cram your 99%, Sinora. When I was 16, in the middle of doing my GCSEs, my dad got into a serious car accident. He was in intensive care for about 2 months. During that time, we were told that he would probably not survive. Thankfully, he pulled through. But in the meantime, I hadn't been doing any coursework or going to school. This happened in January. My exams were in May-June. I managed to do enough revision to pass my exams. But I never managed to finish my coursework for art class. The quality of my work was worth an A, but I hadn't done enough of it. I applied for mitigating circumstances, meaning that if granted, my work could have been marked on quality rather than quantity. But for whatever reason, the school refused, so I ended up getting a bad grade. That was 10 years ago and I'm still angry about it. Got points off because of the bad grammar in the quote I used. The quote was Oppenheimer's "I am become death, destroyer of worlds." My teacher lost my coursework on the bus home. I refused to redo a year's worth of work in 3 weeks and I got taken from an A to C. Bullet. School sided with him. In the 90s my family didn't have a computer and I had no access to one. I spent a lot of time on a handwritten assignment for school and the teacher gave me a B, writing as a comment, "I would have given you an A if you had typed it up on a computer." I'm still bitter. I was taking a 1-week online class. In the syllabus, the teacher said you must post 6 times throughout the week. So, I posted 6x on Monday, 1x on Wednesday and felt I was good to go. I get my grade teacher comments and the teacher wrote KNO 905. You had some good posts early in the week, but then you stopped posting, so I had to mark you down. I was annoyed by this, but then realized it was the last online course in the program and frankly I didn't care. I still graduated and that certificate is proudly sitting in my junk drawer for all to see. In high school, I used the word lascivious to describe a character in a book and my teacher didn't know what the word meant. So logically, he took off a point. Oh my god, you just reminded me of the time my high school teacher didn't believe unison was a word. That's ridiculous. She should know a unison is one buffalo standing by itself. If there are 2 buffaloes then it's bison. A spelling test, not graded by the teacher, but by the kid next to us. Kid named Anthony decided all my words that had letters U and E were switched and marked pretty much every word wrong. They weren't. Like, this was probably in 3rd grade so my handwriting was chicken scratch, but that was really stupid, to me. I was upset, since it was the first time I failed something in school. 4th grade, the day before Thanksgiving break. There was no work to be done of course, so we had a busy work art assignment. We were all handed graph paper and told to color each of the squares either yellow, orange, red, or brown. And once we finished, we were supposed to cut out corn shapes to make Indian corn decorations. I already thought this WAA stupid, and filling in all the squares was tedious. So I traced the corn shape on the graph paper and only filled in the squares that would end up as part of the final product. This meant my decorations looked the same as all the others, but I didn't waste time filling in squares that would just get cut away. When the teacher saw what I had done, she gave me a 50 for skipping work. This would be an A paper from some other students but you can do better. I got a C and no other feedback on how to improve. She gave me a 0 because she didn't think I read the book. She said I would have gotten a 75% if she thought I read it. 75% of the test questions right supposedly means I didn't actually do the reading. Still one of those things that pisses me off even 10 years later. Wrote in Chicago format and lost points. The assignment instructions said to write in Chicago format. This reminds me of an assignment in which lost marks for not double spacing my work. I did double space my work. Didn't happen to me, but a teacher kinda gave everyone in a class bad grades because they ditched her. They all planned to hang out after the last class. Guess she was better about it. I didn't like a movie that was supposed to be her favorite. She would do stuff like this all the time to other students as well. Complaints were made, but I graduated before I saw where it led. I had a Richie religion professor back in junior high school. She lowered the grade of another student because they had written in the exam that when Moses got the 10 commandments there was lightning when the correct answer was thunderbolts. A friend of mine got a -1 for scratching his head. Our teacher said he was faking it. I was accused of plagiarism because I had an above average vocabulary. I got a grade in the end but I was ticked. It was a group project where nobody did anything. I had to do the whole thing and turn it into a teacher who usually works with the special needs kids. She didn't think preemptive strike was a term an 8th grader should know, so obviously it was plagiarized. I failed a lit exam in college because I answered a question too well. We were supposed to write an essay comparing and contrasting one of the books that we read that semester to a modern concept or ideal. We had known about this particular question for weeks, so we had had plenty of time to prepare. Apparently it's possible to be too correct, because the response I got was that, though it is clear I did not plagiarize, none of my thoughts were original and matched too closely with the author's interpretation of the work. I was the only person in the class to not only fail but to get less than a B. I got no other bad marks on the rest of the exam, either. He failed me based on just that one part. Because he didn't read my paper. It was a university class where a TA was responsible for grading the papers. He was clearly overwhelmed and just reading introductions and grading based on them alone. I had a 2-part introduction that fully addressed the prompt, but as he only read the first part I got my paper back with a big C at the top. I ended up getting full credit after I challenged the initial grade. Because all tasks had room for interpretation, multiple answers and opinion, but my teacher only accepted his own exact opinion, interpretation and choice. Edit. I just remembered I had a teacher who gave me a D because he lost one of 2 papers I gave in for my math exam. I had a psychology teacher like that. She would ask the most biased questions guaranteed to start fights and only her opinion was right. I mean baited stuff like which political party is better, which gender is superior, which X is more likely to succeed, stuff like that. And her response would always be something like, oh well, you are entitled to your opinion, but here is why you are wrong. And her tests would be the same way. You literally just had to write down her opinion or you were wrong. For the final submission of my graphic design college qualification, the brief was to design branding for a pub club. I got a B because my concept was too cool. The sheer mind-freaking bullet of that actually knocked me so hard that I didn't even bother pursuing it as a career beyond the course. I work as a designer. Did they really mean it didn't fit the brand? Let's say the prompt was design an identity around this old local pub that's been here for 100 years. They want to update the logo and menu while still keeping with some of the traditions and iconography found in the old identity. Now, if that's the prompt, too cool is a nice way of saying it's not hitting the correct demographic or accomplishing the goals laid out in the prompt. You've made a hipster logo for a mom and pop shop. I broke my right arm in 3rd grade. I write with my right hand. The teacher gave me a bad grade because my handwriting with my left hand was barely legible. Right around the same age I knew someone who broke their right arm during the school year and had to do all their assignments left-handed. I saw how difficult it was for them and thought, wow, I better start practicing writing with my left just in case. This is the only reason I'm pseudo-ambidextrous now. I never broke anything, knock on wood, But as an adult I did manage to get tendonitis in my right wrist working on a project with a deadline, and that's the only time my practice came in handy, no pun intended. If you liked this video, then you might like, teachers, what is the smartest thing the stupidest student has said? Or some of these other videos.